Are you wondering whether Nikon D750 is worth buying this year? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to cover here and explain why it might be one of the best photography deals today. And watch until the end of the video because I'm going to share the 5 lenses for D750. Coming up!
Shall we?
We shall.
You might be wondering, considering that it was launched in 2014, is Nikon D750 worth buying this year? My honest opinion? Yes. We all know that the technology has advanced since then, but many photographers will argue that this DSLR is good to go for at least next 3-5 years. Truth is, Nikon D750 remains to be one of the top performing full-frame cameras on the market today. Right away, I can name the 5 reasons why you'll love this camera.
Such as?
It has fantastic image quality, great low light performance, good autofocus and burst rate up to 6.5 frames per second, tilting LCD screen, amazing dynamic range, and best of all, today the price of this full-frame Nikon DSLR is under $1,500, which is a steal. Without a doubt, if you're getting into the professional market, you can't go wrong with this camera as a start. And believe me, I'm not going to be the only one saying this. Now, I have a full text-based review of Nikon D750, so if you want to learn about the camera in detail, then see my link in the description. In the video though, I want to talk about the things that you might like about D750, the things you might not, and answer some of the frequently asked questions. So when it comes to pros, there are a lot of things that you're gonna like about this DSLR. Specifically, great dynamic range, sharp images, good 51-point autofocus system even in low light conditions, comfortable hand grip, high ISO performance, burst rate up to 6.5 frames per second, which makes it great for sports photography, video mode with full HD at 60 frames per second, advanced ergonomics, exposure metering working with old Nikon lenses, the internal mode which helps with photographing lightning or fireworks. Now, while there are a lot of pros, what are the things that you might not like or simply should keep in mind? Well, considering that there is a 4K mania, you should know that D750 is not a 4K body, but 1080p is great. Second of all, it's not touchscreen. For some people it might be a big deal, so I thought I should mention. Another thing to mention is that D750 doesn't have a quiet shutter. Also, the maximum speed in RAW is 15 frames. Another thing that I noticed is that the focus in live view mode might be a little bit slow. Keep this in mind. In any case, considering what D750 is capable of, and for the cost of under $1,500, there's no doubt in my mind that this camera is worth buying this year.
Check it out.
Anyway, at this point, I want to answer some of the commonly asked questions in the versus format. While image detail is great in D750, some might argue that it's a bit better in D7100 because of the absence of low-pass filter in the latter. I also have a full text-based review of D7100, but to answer the image detail question, please remember that the pixel density in D750 is much lower. So in this case, it's better to lose a bit of detail than get a higher risk of moire in the photos. Next, D750 versus D810. I already mentioned that D750 has fabulous dynamic range and image quality, but some might argue that Nikon D810 is a better option than Nikon D750. While I agree that D810 is better in many ways, it's also a lot more expensive and definitely not recommended for complete beginners. And by the way, I have a full text-based review of Nikon D810, so check out the links in the description. Next, A lot of people on my website were asking me whether they should go for Z6 instead of D750. Truth is, these cameras have a lot of similarities in terms of battery life, ISO, performance, color depth, and dynamic range. Now, if you absolutely need great video capabilities like 4K, slow motion, focus peaking, and so forth, then choose Z6. But if your main photography style involves shooting sports or birds with long lenses, then I would go for D750. Speaking of lenses, what are the good ones for D750? Let's find out! First things first, if you're not a pro, I'd say you should keep it simple to start and try to learn more about your camera and photography in general. Anyway, the two inexpensive starter lenses that you can go with are the 50mm 1.8 and 85mm 1.8 as well. Honestly, it's easier to provide lens recommendations if I know what your budget is, what your photography style is, whether you prefer fixed or zoom, but I still wanted to give you some suggestions on which lenses to get for your Nikon D750. So if I were to mention the 5 lenses, then it would be the following. The first one would be the 50mm 1.8 prime lens, which is a great one to start with, and it offers a great value-price ratio. The second one would be 28-300, which is an awesome all-in-one lens, especially if you like to travel light. The third one is 16-35 lens, which is a must for landscape photographers. The fourth one is 24-120mm lens, which is a decent budget option for beginners. My fifth recommendation would be 70-300, which is a great budget telephoto lens under $200.
Alright.
And hey, if you have any questions, ask away. Remember that the best tips and discussion happens down there in the comments. Also, I want you to tap the notification bell because in the next video I'm going to talk about Nikon D810 for this year. In the meantime, check out the note cards for more videos.